Mr. Robert Sisilo, you are the permanent representative of the Solomon Island to the United Nations. Thank you for being with us today. I would like just to point out that you were appointed as permanent representative in January 2017. Before this latest appointment, you served as trade negotiations envoy in your country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and External Trade between May 2012 and June 2014. Also as permanent secretary in the Foreign Ministry and in the Ministry of Police, National Security and Correctional Service. We are here today to speak about the process of graduation from the least developed countries. Solomon Island could meet the graduation criteria for the second consecutive time, having further improved its gross income per capita and human assets index scores. What plans did the country adopt in order to reach this status?
Well, the Istanbul Program of Action has set a very ambitious agenda that enabled Solomon Islands meet the criteria for graduation by 2020. And we have since then, I think, come a long way to reach this stage in 2015, where we became eligible for graduation from the LDC category for the first time, and hopefully for the second time later this week. Now, a regional response, I think, for a period during the unrest that we experienced in 1998 to 2003, called for a regional assistance mission to Solomon Islands, RAMSI, and it came and helped restore law and order. And during that time, because of the peaceful state of affairs in the country, the government then prepared and launched a 20-year national development strategy from 2016 to 2035 to rebuild the country. And since then, the economy has experienced an upward trend in economic growth. At the end of 2016, for example, the growth rate was 3.5% compared to 3% the year before, 2015. And this was a result of a 3.3% growth in the primary sector, as well as combined with a 4.25% growth rate in the services sector. Also, donor support was also a major contributor to growth through funding of capital projects.
Solomon Island has benefited from the South Pacific Regional Trade and Economic Cooperation Agreement, under which Australia and New Zealand grant duty-free, quota-free market access. Solomon Island is also a signatory of the Pacific Agreement on a closer economic relation. How would that help the country to overcome its economic vulnerability?
Yes, under Spartica and PESA Plus, now PESA Plus, Solomon Islands will continue duty-free, quota-free market access of its products to the Australian and New Zealand market. Now, the lack of capacity and, of course, lack of meeting the health and quarantine requirements of Australia and New Zealand, I think, was a major, if not the main constraint Solomon Islands has faced in terms of accessing their markets. But thanks to PESA Plus, I think there are provisions there for development assistance and also capacity building that would certainly assist us in terms of improving our market access of our products to these two countries. So that's certainly how we're going to benefit from PESA Plus, and we already have a national trade policy framework that looks at how best we can address our trade, especially our private sector, in terms of accessing these two markets, Australia and New Zealand, of course the rest of the world too.
How did UN and OHRLS CDP in particular help in guiding the country through the process of a future graduation from LDCs?
Well, the agreed actions in the 8 priority areas of the program of action, this is the Istanbul Program of Action, I think for Solomon Islands was a call for a paradigm shift in cooperation, especially in seeking partnerships in game changers and large transforming programs and projects. And such a call, I think, is very appropriate and relevant for Solomon Islands, our informal sector, where 80% of our people actually live. And the periodic reviews of the Istanbul Program of Action are in LDC ministerial meetings, like the one we had in Dhaka in 2016. It was very useful to providing feedback on how a country, Solomon Islands, we are progressing or not progressing in terms of addressing the priority areas and how to overcome our challenges. I understand there will be an inter-regional and a regional meeting in the Pacific later this year to take stock of where countries are in implementation of the Samoa pathway. And this will be a very useful exercise in keeping countries on course insofar as achieving our SDGs targets.
Till now, Solomon Islands remains highly dependent on international cooperation. Who are your main development partners, and what are some of the major cooperation programs?
Yes, development assistance, I think, will continue to comprise a significant proportion of our development budget. And we continue to receive substantial financial support from our development partners, mainly Australia, the European Union, Japan, New Zealand, and the World Bank, to name a few. And some of our major cooperation programs are on infrastructure, road, bridges, and airports, education, schools, scholarships, health, hospitals, clinics, and tourism.
Thank you. Would you like to send any message for the international community in order to further your quest for graduation?
Yes, I think first of all and foremost, I think to thank them all for all their support during all this time, without which I think we will not be talking here right now. But as my Prime Minister in his letter to the Secretary of the Committee on Development Policy said, the prospect that we may be graduating from the list of LDCs is a positive step in our development path. And it will encourage us to be more bold in our approach to implementing the SDGs and, of course, our own national development strategy. We do accept hands down that the efforts towards graduation need to be country-driven. Nonetheless, the support of development and trading partners in a spirit of shared responsibility and accountability will always be welcomed. Smooth transition measures that help mitigate the shocks and impacts of a possible graduation calls for greater cooperation and strengthened collaboration with our partners. I think the last thing we want to, both sides, donors and us alike, I think the last thing that we want is to slide back into an LDC category.
Thank you so much for all this info. Your Excellency, Mr. Robert Sisilo, the Ambassador of the Solomon Islands to the United Nations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.